Wait a minute. What if you were to go back in time and poop on the president's desk? Would that be considered as a Nexus level event?
No! God, please, no!
Welcome to Torn Apart, back again, and today we're gonna be looking at Loki. What do we know about Loki? It's a 6-episode mini-series. A second season is already in development. It's created by Michael Waldron, who is also credited as the writer for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. All the 6 episodes have been directed by Kate Herron. She's credited mostly for a lot of really good episodes from Sex Education.
She touched my eyebrows. Now I have an erection. You said you wouldn't laugh. It won't go away. It's been half an hour. It's really cold.
And I really like when Disney does things like that, and when miniseries do things like that just in general, so that you have a very clear creative direction. You've got one showrunner and you've got one director. I was really glad to notice that actually WandaVision, it was exactly the same thing, but the roles were reversed. So the showrunner was a woman, Jacqueline Schaffer, and the director of all the episodes was Matt Shakman. And I really hope that they keep going with this kind of direction, because I feel like only good things could come from them. Of course, Loki is one of my favorite villains in the MCU. It's almost impossible to find anyone on Earth that doesn't like or enjoy Tom Hiddleston's performance when it comes to his portrayal of Loki.
We are not doing Get Help.
Get help! Please! My brother's dying! Get help!
There's been a lot of interesting changes when it comes to his character and his character development in the last few MCU films. And I was kind of scared when they said they were gonna push the reset button when it comes to Loki and just pick him out of the MCU's Avengers movie and just lead him into a weird and new, different direction. But from these first 2 episodes, I really like what they're doing with the character, mostly because since the TVA knows the future and knows everything that has happened, Loki actually has access to all the things that the other Loki has been through, and just see him go through all of those emotions all over again is a really interesting thing to see, and Tom Hiddleston really just sells the shit out of it. Oh, and by the way, I will try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, but I still want to discuss a couple of things, so of course I will have to go into spoilers when it comes to the first 2 episodes. But I wanted to keep going with this kind of weird format that I've started, which is I will watch the first 2 episodes of a Marvel show and try to understand where it's going and whether it's actually gonna be good and whether it's actually gonna be worth watching for Marvel fans or for non-Marvel fans. I feel like if you're a casual fan, you definitely enjoy Loki just because it's very fast-paced. There is a strong visual style. It's just fascinating to look at. It's just if you look at it from like a futuristic dystopian perspective, I feel like everything that has been dealt, it's really interesting. I really like the fact that they give Loki basically another chance to redeem himself in a faster way and to make also healthier choices. And it's fascinating just of how this entire show premise is about playing with free will and giving opportunities to people to change in different ways. It really addresses those kind of questions that go like this. What defines you? Is it your actions? Is it the way that you behave? Is it like what you've done in the past? Or is there something at the very core of you as a person that defines you and that will always come out?
I don't enjoy hurting people.
I love the fact that this series doesn't hide anything from us. From the very first episode, we already know what the TVA is trying to accomplish. We already know who the villain is approximately. We know that they're looking for a darker kind of variant version of Loki, and that's exactly why they need him for the investigation. And they've sort of started structuring a show around the idea that Loki is the villain and the hero of the story, which is entirely true when it comes to his character and the nature of his character. Like, we've seen him across MCU films in the way that he constantly self-destruct himself, and he has really poor judgment when it comes to the choices that he does. We really don't know why he does the things that he does, and most of the times he doesn't know either. And I love the fact that this series, and in the first 2 episodes, he's already asking himself those kind of questions, and it's fascinating how they deconstruct his character so well to the point that he starts becoming like a very tragic but also pathetic character. It could be dangerous, maybe just because if they push that button too hard, and he could become completely nihilistic and snarky and comic version of Loki, which sort of like start not see him as a threat anymore, which would be a shame, I think, because it would just damage everything that has been built for the past few years. I feel like it really worked with Thor when it comes to Thor Ragnarok, but because he's the character that allows you to do that, because he's kind of a big muscled fool.
Ragnarok, the fall of Asgard, the great prophecy.
Hang on. I'll be back around shortly. Do I really feel like we were connecting there?
And just the fact that he knows that and he knows how to play around that, it works for that character. Another thing that I really like about the series and the idea of having Loki as a villain and as the hero at the same time is that maybe this aspect of Loki will allow us to see the most mischievous kind of Loki that we've ever seen. And I love the fact that, for example, Owen Wilson's character Mobius shows Loki how he's been failing over and over and over again. And it would be really fascinating to see a version of Loki that has just completely abandoned his human side and the way that he cares for others, and that's what actually makes the variant succeed at what it does, right? Of course, as well in the other series, we've got so many different details hidden in the frame, and I'm not one of those people who actually loves just looking frame for Easter eggs, especially because I don't have a background in the comics when it comes to the superhero shows here. But there are a couple of things that I found really, really cool. For example, if you looked at the file that the TVA got on Loki, when it comes to Loki's sex, it was specified that it was fluid. And I actually like that. And I actually like that because it was true to the comics, but at the same time, the head writer, Michael Waldron, said that it was a conscious choice to make, also to more resemble the contemporary world. If we keep talking about representation, I really love the representation when it comes to Hunter B-15, who is played by the actress Bumni Mosaku. And I mean, let's just say that the MCU has not been really good when it comes to representing realistic body types when it comes to women. I mean, if you just look at all of the different superheroes, if you just look at all the different secondary characters, there isn't maybe a single one that comes to mind that is of the same body type as Hunter B-15. The 2 episodes are already perfectly paced, the writing is incredibly tight, there's actually a lot of world building and backstories and exposition being given to us, but it's done in such a fun way. And of course Tom Hiddleston reacts with such perfect banter that it's impossible not to just sit there in front of the TV and just look and be amazed by like how everything becomes so easy when it's well done. I mean, I really like the retrofuturism, and especially because it made me think of the show Maniac, which I really enjoyed as well. Something that I really didn't like when it comes to WandaVision is that the episodes were way too short sometimes, to the point that I almost had the feeling that the end credits were as long as the episodes itself.
I like making bread, but I was like annoyed that everyone was making bread for some reason, so I started making mayonnaise. There's a lot of...
No. And with Falcon and the Winter Soldier was the completely opposite thing. It felt like I was sitting in front of the TV for 40 minutes and nothing, absolutely nothing was happening. And here when it comes to this show, they clearly proven in just 2 episodes that the stakes are there and important things will actually happen in this show in the same way that they happen with WandaVision. So when it comes to the first episode, it's mainly like catching up Loki and put him in the good emotional place so that it can actually work within the series. And the second episode actually shows us the potential of this series.
Blah 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 blah. Aren't you sick of listening to him talk? Wouldn't you rather go to Narnia?
That is, until they found the wardrobe once again.
Let's cross streams.
There we go. Oops, a little bit of blood.
Of course, Owen Wilson gives an incredible performance, and I really like his addition to the team, mostly because he's very snarky, but in a different way. He's snarky in a way that like feels very blasé. It seems like he really doesn't care about human affairs, and he just wants everything to be in order, everything to be perfect, like the space lizards want everything to be. I really like the fact that already when we get to episode 2, we see a different version of Loki wearing a tie, wearing a jacket, and he's got Variant written on the back of his shirt, and of course he's ready to investigate, and they actually call him Professor Loki, which is really funny. But I also like the fact that one of the first things that he does when he goes into action, it's that he tries to scheme. He tries to scheme and he tries to actually get away from the situation. We have to give once more praise to Tom Hiddleston's performance, because literally in these 2 episodes we've just been catching up all the traumatic things that Loki has been through in the last 10 years. Maybe for Marvel fans to feel like nice nostalgic little bits, just because of Tom Hiddleston's performance, it just flows effortlessly, and we don't even mind that it's literally just backstory exposition. We feel it at the same time as Loki feels it, and we're trying to sympathize with him as much as possible, and it really hurts to see that he's not the same character that we know. So here it's when I'm actually going to start a bit spoiling things, because there is some interesting things that I wanted to talk about. In this episode, Loki finds out that the Variant is hiding within Apocalypsis. I mean, for me, it's actually incredible that by episode 2, we already know the hiding place of the Variant, and we're already going there to try and stop this Variant. So by the end of this episode, what do we know about the villain? They reject the identity of Loki, doesn't want to take over the TVA, steals reality bombs, kidnaps person who works for the TVA to find out where the timekeepers are, and wait for it. The Time Variant is
eggs. I always need eggs, jams, and nut butters because
a fucking Loki lady version. But of course she rejects the identity, so we still don't know exactly who this person is, even though she's wearing the horns. And I love the fact that she's completely playing around with him.
This isn't about you.
Which is something that probably obliterates completely all the self-worth that Loki has for himself, just because he thinks that everything is about himself. And that's probably why at the end of this episode actually Loki leaves and goes through the same door. I think it's because he wants to go and talk to that version of Loki as well, and find out why this isn't about him. I love the fact that this show already in the first 2 episodes has raised so many different questions. For example, the fact that the Infinity Stones are just paperweights within the TVA universe, and it makes no sense. I mean, some Marvel fans have said that it kind of trivializes all the Infinity Stones chasing that we've been doing for the last phase, but I don't think so. I feel like it falls into cosmic horror in the way that there are just great forces that are beyond the things that we understand. I really like the fact that TVA is starting to look like a religious cult, and it's really weird, and it raises so many different questions, like if they're so evolved, are they robots? Are they humans? Because if they're humans, they might be flawed, and if they're flawed, then how can they hope to actually accomplish everything that the timekeepers want them to accomplish? And I feel like at the end of the day, they will reveal that the timekeepers are right, but also wrong about a lot of things. One tiny small complaint will be, I mean, why do they actually investigate these Nexus level events with glowing sticks? It makes no absolute sense. Every single time they just have to go close to the person and go, psst. I mean, we're talking about technically the most powerful people in the entire universe. Do I love this show? Of course I love this show. Do I like the pacing? Do I like the writing? Do I like the cinematography, which is actually really, really amazing? Of course I do. Do I like the fact that Loki escaped at the end? Of course I do, because I feel like it really will open up the world so much more. Having said that, for me, Loki is a clear recommendation and it has great potential when it comes to being the best MCU series out there. Let me know in the comments if you liked this video and what were your favorite parts when it comes to the first and the second episode. Let me know also if you like the direction in which the show is going or if anything left you disappointed. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it always helps. I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart. Da